r/AskReddit. Katamine says, past bullies / mean kids, did you realize you were a bad person during or after the bullying? What made you realize? Confidentialicious says, mean girl during high school. I stopped being a shat when my friends started gossiping about me. Karma's got a sense of humor. Therateguy says, I'm a guy, but throughout high school, I had a girl bully who hated me. I had no idea why, because I was mostly a quiet bookworm. But we did not get along at all. Years later, we ended up working in the same place together. She apologized to me for being a biatch. And I didn't ask her for any reasons. We were besties after that. And would hang out and party together. I haven't seen her in good 15 years, but I hope she's doing well. Artist Life 61 says, knew a guy who had a similar situation. Girl constantly verbally abused him, mostly about him being a jock. They ended up getting together after high school. Turns out she had a massive crush on him the whole time. She just had a funny way of showing it. Sggo says, I always lived on both sides. I was bullied, and in turn I was a bully. At the time of course I knew I was an asshole, but the gravity of it didn't sink in until my adult years. I was and still am greatly affected by how my bullies treated me, and it brings a lot of remorse knowing I also inflicted that same pain right back onto others. I was never physical as a bully, but I had been beaten up a couple times by mine. Unesifia says, I cold written out this exact thing, including the not a physical bully. But I inflicted a lot of emotional bullying. I can still get choked up talking about it, but at the same time, can still get a little rageful about the bullying inflicted upon me, but in a positive turn of events. One guy I was particularly unkind to is a multi-millionaire now, so there's that. I guess not exactly sure when I grew out of it, but thankfully, I did. Different Opinion 1 says, can't speak for everyone, but I'm now a highly successful multi-millionaire executive who was bullied mercilessly in my younger teen years. Shit still hurts. Sometimes I think about using some of my wealth to go back and get even with those bullies. Mr. Hanswood says, mostly getting out of my old environment. I didn't realize it was bullying. It was what I was just used to happening to me, so I thought it was normal. Zolmamkfason says, I just haven't realized the gravity, because I thought it was normal too. Anor Hidemark says, there's so much focus, generally, on bullies just being bad people, but once you're an adult actually working with bullies you realize how much of it is people having no idea that they are even bullying for exactly that reason. And how much of bullying situations are each person thinking they're the one being bullied, and they are just getting back at their bully. And how much bullying is just a small group of people, but the kid being bullied becomes hyper-vigilant about watching for bullies, thinks just about everyone is bullying them, starts standing up to every perceived slight, becomes a bully themselves. And how much bullying is genuine misunderstandings. And how much families contribute by saying you're allowed to beat up your bullies, you might be in trouble at school, but not with me. With no follow-up. Like, say that, sure, and then put them in actual self-defense classes or any fighting sport where someone at that master level can explain to them the importance of de-escalation, because it sounds a lot more meaningful coming from them than a parent/teacher. FFS it's not. Either Performer 712 says, looking back, I didn't always realize the impact my words or actions had on others at the time. It wasn't until I grew older and started reflecting on how I treated people that I began to understand. What really hit me was hearing someone talk about how bullying had affected their self-esteem. It was a moment where I realized that I had been part of someone else's pain, and it made me rethink a lot about the way I had behaved. Not Thadavil him says, experiences helps us learn. We never truly know, not until the last. Sometimes we learn the hard way. What's important is we improve as a person. Bradley 100 says, I realized later in life just thinking back. I thought it was a joke, but I was just being a massive conch. I have tried to say sorry before, but I was told to, frick off for good reason. Laptop account says, being bullied really sucks. I don't think about them anymore, but I certainly wouldn't forgive them if they approached me now. I wish my childhood bullies nothing but the worst in life. r/AskReddit. Honaduiat says, what's keeping you from letting go of last year's baggage? Why hold on to something so long? Iloaneve says, it's all I have. Ernortig says, sometimes we feel like we need closure before we can move on, but life doesn't always give us a clean, wrapped up ending. So we hold on to the baggage, waiting for something that might never come. Velveted Puppy says, we tend to replay situations in our heads, thinking we could've done something differently. That sense of what if creates a loop, making it hard to move on because we feel like we could've controlled the outcome. Bimbobject says, sometimes holding on to the past is easier than facing the uncertainty of the future. Even if the memories or experiences weren't the best, they're familiar. Letting go means stepping into the unknown, which can be scary. Pinky Rabbit says, a lot of the time, we think holding on to the past helps us avoid making the same mistakes again. It's almost like we're using that baggage as a guide, even though it can end up being more of a weight than a useful tool. Bimba Slutty says, there's comfort in routine, even if it's emotional. If you've been carrying something for a while, it becomes part of your identity. Letting go can feel like losing a piece of yourself, even if it's something that's weighing you down. Zuka42 says, shit last year. I've got stuff that's old enough to vote in the States. Bimbounda Boob says, it's possible that we hold on to baggage because we are not really ready to confront the deeper feelings behind it. Letting go means doing the emotional work, and that can be overwhelming or even painful. Mom with an attitude says, because I'm still dealing with the fallout from what was done to me. I don't let it stop me from moving my life forward. But I will also never forget. Dependent Internal 875 says, last year's baggage affects how things are today in a very significant way. Hard to let go of something when it constantly reminds you of it happening. Introduction 2604 says, the book of grudges must be settled. I'm owed a debt with interest. Welsh Chili 2 says, last year. I've still got baggage from 30 odd years ago. It's taken the last 18 years to unpack said baggage. Some of it has been dealt with, but there's one important bag I've not opened properly because it may break my parents' hearts if I don't do it in the right way. They were doing what they thought best at the time. It was done out of love and concern, medical issues, but it, ed me up massively from a psychological perspective. They know about my mental health, but they don't know the root cause is based on a decision they made in 1989. Helen Babibin says, sometimes it's hard to let go because we think those memories define us. But it's time to move on. Not Technology 0101 says, I've invested too much in this baggage. It's like a bad relationship, you just can't quit it. Nightmarish Jura 3 says, my mother dropping me off at the hospital when I was 11 and never returning. Said I was causing too much problems for her. 30 years later and just about every aspect of my life is affected by that one day. Sweet Journey IE88 says, I was blinded by love. Tockle says, lack of closure. It's taking a long time to come to terms with the fact that I'll likely never get it. JD054 says, trauma stays with you, and even when you're determined to let it go, it still takes time. Anekara says, Sometimes the suitcase is handcuffed to your wrist. Dreamy00 Queen says, sometimes it's hard to let go because part of me is still holding on to what could've been. Horny 55 Women says, sometimes it's hard to let go because we're still trying to make sense of everything that happened. At healing doesn't always happen on a set timeline. Antique Purchase 402 says, sometimes it's just hard to let go because we get attached to the memories, even if they are not great. Contim0R says, letting go of baggage that hurts isn't easy, especially if it also makes you very happy sometimes. On a Life to Live 1 says, addiction I try, but always go back. I won't give up though. r/AskReddit. It's Electra says, how do you think family expectations or pressures have affected your choices in life? Zblasomhug says, man, family expectations are like that annoying song you can't get out of your head. They shape choices, but sometimes I just wanna be me, you know? Candelabalin says, same dude. I wish I could be happy with the person that I am, but there is always that voice in the back of my head. Global Winner 8040 says, a lot of effects. Our actions are based on what our environment dictates. Bad Throttle Pop says, too long, didn't read, couldn't try anything, that may result in failure. I still struggle with it, and probably will for the rest of my life. Team sports? Nope, we don't like sports. You're good at art, you do art. Advanced math? Nope, because at 1D you got freshman year means you're bad at it. Creative writing? Nope, your sister writes, you draw. Struggling? Nope, your sister struggles so you can't. Sad? Nope, well yes, but everyone is sad. We are both sad, so get used to it. I have spent my whole life being the mediator in my family, and despite loving solitude and the outdoors, I became a therapist because it's all I've ever been, so a lot of it comes naturally to me now. Every other avenue was crushed by my parents' anxiety/expectations/black and white thinking, to the point where I really believed trying anything and not being immediately good at it meant it wasn't for me. Depression had a lot to do with it too, and I love my parents, but man, I wish I could've seen how they were influencing me. Maleficent Memory 606 says, a lot of ESP narcissists' parents and unhealed parents. Diga Jones 4 says, my brother and I, 65 and 57 respectively, talked about how we are still trying to earn dad's pride. So I would say quite a bit. Emerisony says, family expectations are like a weight on your back, kinda makes you trip sometimes but also helps ya stand tall. No easy balance though. Strawberry Berry says, unfortunately, they broke me in early adulthood and shattered my dreams. Thankfully, I'm back at it with my own confidence now, and my family has realized I'm just going to do what I want. My mom regrets not supporting me and encouraged me to go back to school for those old broken dreams. Birdneen says, my mother expects me to date white men. The closest I've gotten to that has been a guy who looked like Vladimir Harkonnen from Dune. The Porcelain Spleen says, my mother told me that the absolute perfect man is out there for me. She told me that repeatedly, and I believed her. I wish she taught me more about getting along with people instead, because I was way too picky when I was younger and did not have the skills and temperament to get along later on. Candelabalin says, I've been working through it with therapy. It's also the one of the reasons I hate myself so much. Claymore Master says, my familial expectations send me to college to get, basically, a useless degree. Now, hindsight is 20/20, and I don't really regret it, and who knows what would have happened if I didn't go to college, etc. But basically, me going to college was a foregone conclusion. I was basically being set up as do all of the things that's gonna get you in college. I didn't even really think twice about it. My mom's generation was one where a college degree was a practically 100% guarantee to a good job and life. Plus I kinda wanted to be a doctor, radiologist specifically, so it was fine. However, I wasn't really that motivated, and, the worst part, she had me taking college classes, since 11th to 12th grade summer, and right after graduation, where I took something like 25 credit hours, because I had a scholarship. Then, after moving up to a new college and getting established, I hit a burnout. A bad burnout. Like I'm paranoid my mom is sabotaging me, and I just read this book for 4 hours, closed it and forgot which subject I had just studied. Kinda burnout. After thankfully getting the break I needed, I bounced kinda back. I had a rough start getting back, but eventually the question became what can I do with the classes I've taken already, and figured out I was like 2 or 3 semesters from a public admin degree. So I took it. That degree did nothing for me. I couldn't get a good job with it in an area I wanted, and ultimately waited years before striking out to get my master's degree. Which also didn't get me a job, because I didn't have any management experience. Then I got a nursing degree which I did actually use, but also found out I wasn't really cut out for nursing. So now, I'm back getting my second master's degree in informatics. I do feel a bit better about this decision though. Anyway, if only I could go back in time and tell myself to take a break and or really think about what I wanted to do and be. Honestly, the best option would have been finding a normal job for a bit while I figured my shit out, but that was never on the table. Locus Baki says, I've received a lot of bad advice from family over the years who promptly disavowed any accountability. I kept going back because of filial duty. This taught me eventually to assert myself away from my family. I won't go into details, but that was a wise decision. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.